So a special counsel has concluded that Joe Biden did willfully take documents, but stated that he won't be charged. And the main reason he's not being charged is because he cooperated with authorities. And they drew parallels to how Joe Biden cooperated with authorities versus how Donald Trump didn't, and explained how Donald Trump was charged versus how Joe Biden won't be. But then this special counsel turned into a political hit job, and it threw MAGA the one bone they so desperately needed when it said that Joe Biden wouldn't stand trial because he was a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory, and that's all it took. That's the one line MAGA needed so desperately to pull out of that. Ignore all the rest of it. Let's just focus on that. Let's run to social media and let's all blow up and say, hey, look, we were right. See, he's unfit to serve. He's too senile. If he can't stand trial because he's got a bad memory, how the hell can he run the country? That's the only talking point that these people have left, because every talking point they've tried to use against Joe Biden has fell apart right in front of their face. And this one falls apart too, and I'm going to explain why here in just a minute. But every talking point that MAGA has used to try to bring down Joe Biden has blew up in their face. They tried to blame him for gas prices. Gas prices came down. They tried to blame him for inflation. Inflation's coming down. They tried to say the economy would tank. The economy's doing better. They tried to say the stock market would crash. The stock market's rising. They tried to say the border was our biggest problem and then went down there themselves and saw that it wasn't as bad as they thought it would be. And they've tried every way in the world to pin something on Hunter Biden, and they can't do that. So they just latch on to this idea that Joe Biden has a bad memory and he's unfit to serve. And they will talk about this. This will be their talking point from now to the election. They will not stop talking about this day. Just remember that. They're going to talk about this from now to then because that's all they got left. But at the same time, this argument falls apart too. How does it fall apart? Well, their alternative to this solution is Donald Trump, a guy who just recently blamed Nikki Haley for January 6th. Did it several times. This is a guy who said there was airports during the Revolutionary War. And Joe Rogan tried to pin that one on Biden and got fact-checked to his face, and yet I've still seen people out there saying that it was Joe Biden that said that. Donald Trump has more blunders on a daily basis and spews more verbal diarrhea, and it always just keeps getting swept under the rug. But the media and everyone will sit and hammer this about Joe Biden for the rest of the year. But when I look at the bigger problems we're facing, I will continue to support and vote for Joe Biden. I will sit here and I will wait while he pauses to think about what he was going to say next. I'll give him all the time he needs before I will entertain the alternative, which is Donald Trump. I will give you that Joe Biden is an elderly man. He's 81 years old. I will give you that he's always had a stutter. I will give you that he has misspoke from time to time. But the alternative is Donald Trump, who says he would like to be a dictator on day one. Just make me dictator for a day, and when I'm done fixing all the world's problems in 24 hours, I'll just give it back to you. He's delusional enough to believe that he can fix all of our problems in 24 hours, and his followers are delusional enough to believe it too. This is a guy who tried to overturn an election that he knew he lost. This is a guy who incited a riot on our nation's capital. This is a man who tried to install fake electors. This is a man who said he would terminate the Constitution anytime he seen fit. That is why I don't care if Joe Biden can't remember the date that his son died. And yeah, that's the low blow that they tried to throw at Joe Biden, because apparently when he was asked what day his son died, he couldn't remember. And MAGA, being the scumbags they are, is picking him apart for that moment. Now, I've never lost a child. I can't imagine how traumatic and horrific that would have to be. My heart truly goes out to anyone out there who has ever endured something like that. But in my world, I lost a little cousin who felt way more like a little brother. He was that cousin, the one that just feels like he's your little brother. You never actually refer to him as your cousin. And I lost him back in 2021. And when someone asks me what day he passed away, I'm 44 years old. But I have to stop and I have to pause, because that moment that I found out is so traumatic to me. I can tell you that it was 10:35 p.m. when I found out, because that's what my phone said when I looked at it. And I'll never forget getting that news over the phone. But I really have to sit here for a second and go, wait a minute, okay. Yeah, that was September 28th. And I've had to train myself on how to remember September 28th because he was born June 27th. So I just say to myself, okay, he was born on the 27th, so just remember he died on the 28th and you've got it. But I have to sit and coach myself like that to be able to answer that question. And then these people has to sit and poke fun at a guy who couldn't remember the date that his son passed away. And they made fun of a guy who comforted a son while he was in rehab and told him everything he was going to be okay. Well, you know what? I will sit from now on waiting for Joe Biden to gather his thoughts before I will ever entertain a thought that comes out of Donald Trump's head or a thought that comes out of MAGA's mouth. Because at the end of the day, I feel like if I vote for Joe Biden in November, that I'll live to vote another day. That I'll get a chance at democracy one more time. I can't say the same about Donald Trump. And I'm going to keep repeating that talking point because no matter what issue you have out there that you're facing, if you are a single issue voter and you just got that one issue, aside from Trump worship, whatever issue you have, Donald Trump doesn't have the answer to it. He never did in the beginning. He didn't during his first term, and he won't during the second term. He's not going to fix your problem, whatever it may be. That's why that I can't entertain. There's not one piece of legislation that Donald Trump put through that they can name that had long-lasting effects on this country. Every talking point they've had has fell apart because they don't understand how government works. They don't understand what a president is responsible for and what he's not. They don't understand how the economy and inflation and gas prices all work. And so therefore, Donald Trump can tell them anything and they'll just believe it. I think the biggest takeaway for me for all of this is that they will still sit and pick at one man's memory. And again, if they had some physically fit dude over here if they had a better alternative, they might have an argument. But as long as they have Donald Trump and his rhetoric, his dangerous rhetoric, I'm not going to entertain it, not even for a second.